I started intentionally trying to find friends that were more aligned with my new priorities and this new version of me. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the show. I'm so glad you're here for another week of the Coachable podcast. And today I am just doing a solo episode. I'm going to just talk about something that's been asked of me quite a bit, but also just share a little bit about what's been going on in my life. And over the last few years, I have made a transition in the way that I approach relationships and specifically friendships. Back in 2018, I had a pretty big spiritual awakening and started to do a lot of work on myself. I went through a breakup right before that, which was actually the catalyst for why I started to look at some of my patterns and ways of behaving and operating in the world. And that breakup really caused me to go inward. A lot of times we go through crisis, and the word crisis means to sift. And so I started to sift through these ideas that I had about myself and who I was, what I enjoyed, what I wanted out of life. And part of that required me to look at my friendships and to go through a process of realigning my friendships and my relationships in my life. And so in this episode today, I want to talk to you about 5 things that I did to find community and call in my tribe. And you might hear people talk about your soul tribe or conscious community and all of that. And it exists. It really is a thing. But here's the thing. Ultimately, what we're talking about is developing heart-centered quality friendships, finding spaces and places where you feel like you belong and that you can be yourself, your true, authentic, highest version of yourself. And let's be honest, a lot of us don't have reference points or context for what that looks like. I didn't really before I started intentionally trying to find friends that were more aligned with my new priorities and this new version of me. But 5 things I did. The first thing was getting to know myself and working on myself, committing to going inward. Like I said, this breakup was a catalyst for me to go inward. And a lot of times when things fall away, especially relationships, there is all of this space that wasn't there before, that person occupied. And now that they're gone, or maybe now that they're not in our life as much, there's space. And what I realized was so much of my identity and who I was as a person was wrapped up in this relationship. My friends were all tied to this person, my hobbies, my interests. It was one of those relationships back in the day that I afterwards, in hindsight, realized like I really lost myself in. And this was my time to reclaim and find who I was again. And so committing to working on myself meant getting to know who I was apart from this person. What did I like? What did I enjoy? Where did I want to spend my time and my energy? What kind of music did I listen to? Because I realized so much of what I did was because of them. And so it was sort of like dating myself. I remember signing up for a salsa dancing class alone. I didn't have a partner or anything, but I just wanted to try new things and see, did it light me up? Did it excite me? Was it fun or not? But number 1 is get to know yourself and work on yourself. Really, whether that means with a coach, therapist. I went on a spiritual retreat and worked with a coach and went to therapy and was in like programs and courses. But the retreat that I went on really was the starting point of really saying, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm really going to focus on me. And it gave me a lot of context for what was possible because I went alone on that trip. And it was really scary to put myself out there and to do something I've never done before, especially without the comfort of someone else. But I went on that retreat and all of a sudden I looked around me and I saw all these other people who were there for the same reason I was. They were all also committed to their growth and their healing. And so I got to start to see that there are people who have the same priorities as me, that growth is something that they are really, really committed to. And I had put myself in that position intentionally and on purpose, not just to make friends, but it was a natural byproduct of doing the work on myself. So work on yourself, raise your standard, not just of the people in your life, but of yourself and what you are asking from you. because the people who are in our lives are reflections of us. They're mirrors. And I didn't realize this back then, but I could see how so many of the friends that I had and I was surrounded by were also, kind of lost. They were also trying to find their way. They were also sort of fitting in and just going along with the crowd. And it wasn't until I chose to do something differently that some of those relationships started to fall away. Number two, the second thing that I did was I created space. So I created space and released friendships and relationships that were restricting me, that felt tight, that felt forced. I started to observe the people in my life, and did I actually enjoy spending time with them? When I left their presence, was I feeling more filled up and fulfilled, or more depleted and, maybe judgmental or critical of myself or other people? I started to look at what our bond or our connection was based on. I started to see and notice that a lot of the friendships that I had, the things that we bonded over were maybe some similar interests, but some of them were pretty shallow, right? It was like going out or going to get drinks and doing brunch, or maybe we liked the same kind of sports or music or whatever, but it didn't always go deeper than that. And this was a time in my life where I was really craving deep, meaningful connections. A lot of the friends in my life at this point left me feeling pretty empty the next day. And I was starting to sense that I was outgrowing them. And this is a scary time because it feels like you're starting to pull away or move away from what's familiar and what you've always done and who you've always been. But it's important to recognize, are the people in your life reminding you more of who you've been, or encouraging you to be more of who you want to be, challenging you to be more of who you want to be? There's a natural progression of the growth and healing journey. It's natural to start to outgrow things and to people and boxes that you once placed yourself in. And if we're not, then likely we're very comfortable. And there were many, many years that I was in that comfortable space until something happened, right? This breakup, it was also at the time right after I lost my mom. So I was really reevaluating my life in every single area and trying to understand what was truly meaningful and important to me. And what I realized was a lot of the time that I was spending was sort of wasted energy. And like I said, it was leaving me pretty empty or dry and craving deeper connections. And so part of this journey is creating space. And whether you have to intentionally end friendships or bring those to a close, or they just naturally filter out of your life, there's definitely a season of this that happens. And so if you're in that, I just want to encourage you that I know it might feel lonely. It might feel like you're walking into a lot of uncertainty. You're in a period of isolation right now. I have been there. This is a part of this process of creating space so that you can call in and have room for new people to come in and show up in your experience. So in that season, just hold on to the belief and the understanding that you deserve deep, meaningful, loving connections where you can feel seen and acknowledged and supported, where you do have friends that feel more like family. This whole conversation today that I wanted to talk about was sort of sparked because I did a Instagram reel that sort of went viral pretty quickly about, how I used to wonder what it would feel like to belong and to have friends that felt like family and to feel like I could really be seen for who I was. And that I don't have to wonder anymore because I have that in my life. And it's incredibly healing and beautiful and humbling to sort of see all of this come full circle, because there were so many years I didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't feel like I had a group. I didn't feel like I belonged. But part of finding your people that really get you requires you to create that space. And it's okay to walk away from relationships that are no longer aligned with who you are becoming. And if you don't, what you're basically saying is that you don't think you deserve better, and you do. So let go of the belief that it's better to have somebody than nobody in your life. Okay. And really create an intention for who you want in your life. What kind of relationships? How do you want to feel? What kind of friendships are you looking for? So number 3 is be open to meeting people online. For years, until actually like this year, or maybe it was like end of 2021, but years, the majority of my deep connections with friends were online. I remember specifically during COVID, I got on Clubhouse for a while, and there was this girl that was speaking, and she spoke so eloquently and powerfully, and she was self-assured, and she was talking about what she's learning and how she's being stretched and growing. And I just thought, man, like that is a powerful woman who's standing in her power. Like I want that kind of a friend. I feel like I could learn from her. I feel like she would encourage me. Like I feel like there would be so much dope shit we could do together. And I ended up messaging her, and it's my friend Carrie Ford, who's actually been on this podcast at least once, maybe twice. And she happened to live in Atlanta. And we were both at the time intentionally trying to call in powerful women, entrepreneurs, people on this like growth path. And she and I connected. I was like, girl, let's hang out. I need to know your name and your number, and like, let's be friends. And she felt the exact same way. And it was so confirming that when you put yourself out there and you maybe message somebody, or you've been following somebody for a while and then you decide to go on their retreat, like I did, there's so much connection that can come from that. And Carrie's one of my dearest friends. She was just out here in Vegas visiting me with Lauren Zoller, and those girls I met fully online. One of the girls that I stayed with in Sedona while I've been out on this road trip, which is sort of coming to an end soon because I'm going to be staying in Vegas. But one of the girl I stayed with for like a week in Sedona was a girl that I met on Instagram. She was one of my followers, and now she is a beautiful friend in my life. So be open to creating connections and meeting people online, because we do live in 2022. And sometimes that is the way that we're so connected, and you can find people who are interested in the same things you are. Just check any of your own judgment around that. If you have anything that feels like, oh, I just want to meet people organically, like, great, go to the gym, go to a painting class, go to a salsa dancing lesson, like do all of those things and be open to meeting people there. And also recognize that there are probably people that follow you, or vice versa, that you could be amazing friends with as well. Number 4. Okay. Number 4, one of the 4 things I did, other things that I did when I was really trying to create community for myself, because I had it online. I felt like I had such a tribe online, but these people were like scattered all over the country. And I really intentionally wanted to create that in person, was trusting my intuition, trusting and following my inspiration and what was like exciting me at the time. When I started this road trip back in March, it was on a whim. It wasn't something that I had planned for a long time. Life events sort of pushed me into it, with my apartment that started giving me issues, and my lease and everything. And I knew at the time that like I was feeling called to go somewhere else, and that chapter in Atlanta was coming to an end for me, but I didn't know what was next. And so I followed my intuition to just go and to travel, and to trust that it would unfold, and that it would present, like the next place I was meant to be would show up, that the people that were supposed to be in my life and come into my experience would. What happened was, when I was in Arizona, and I was actually staying with my friend Anna in Arizona for like a week, and I could feel that the time in Arizona was ending, but I didn't have a plan. I didn't know where I was going to go next. And I put out an intention and released it. I was like, I want to know what's the next place that I should go visit. And in 24 hours, 3 different people reached out to me and were like, you need to go to Vegas. One was a mentor of mine. One was a friend of mine in Atlanta who was going to go visit Vegas. And then the third was Jess, who's been on the show twice in the last couple of weeks. She's one of my absolute best friends, soul family out here. And Jess reached out to me. And the funny thing is, she and I didn't know each other really before. We had an online relationship. like a friendship. We had been connected through a mutual friend a couple years before, but we never met. And she just was like, Tori, I think you're in an interesting part in your life. And I feel like definitely a resonance with it. And if you want to come to Vegas, like my roommate and I would welcome you with open arms. She followed her intuition that day to reach out to me, and I followed mine and said yes. And I had no clue what was going to come from those two things, right? Her reaching out and me agreeing and saying yes. Because again, when I got here, I had never met her. I show up and we had an instant connection. We had so much that we just stayed up talking all night. And I knew immediately that, like, in the first couple days of being around her, that this was somebody who was sent to me in my life for multiple purposes. And this was somebody that was going to be part of my community. Living with Jess, a couple days later, she introduced me to her friend Asher, who I ended up living with for like 2 months. And he became my absolutely closest, dearest friend here in Vegas. And they then infused me and introduced me to everyone that I know here now. And I just built this network and this community of supportive, loving, growth-minded people. And I turned around one day and just thought, wow, like I'm living the reality that I thought about and dreamed about for so long. And I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be experiencing any of this if I hadn't trusted myself to leave behind the old version of me, which also required me to leave behind relationships that just I loved deeply, but just weren't going to be supportive of me going forward because we were growing in different directions. And I say all that to say there is no greater gift you can give yourself than to trust yourself in your knowing. And if you know that there are people in your life that don't want the same things you do, that aren't on the same path you're walking, it's okay to walk alone for a little while until you run into people that are, because you will. And the fifth thing I want to just share is to share your journey. Talk about what you're going through. Let people know, whether that's like on social or not, because Jess would have never reached out to me if she didn't know, right? If she hadn't seen me talking about what I was going through and sharing my journey. And you don't realize who's watching or who's connecting the dots, on the other side of the screen, who's feeling inspired by what you're sharing. And sometimes that looks like just like, hey, this is what I'm going through. Like I just had a friend break up, or I'm just going through a hard time right now. And I just don't think we understand how relatable that is. We all go through hard times and challenging moments, and that's what connects us. We can connect with friends over shared values and goals and dreams and interests, or we can connect with people over gossip and negativity and comparison and trying to one up each other all the time. And for me, there's nothing more nourishing in my life than having people around me that I feel like I can talk to about the things that are most important to me. I can have so much fun with. I can get lost in laughter with them, being goofy, being silly, but also going deep when the moment calls for it, and feeling held, feeling so nourished by those friendships and relationships. And I just say all that, and I want to share this because I want you to know it's possible, and those people are out there. But I don't know if we can get to that point if we're not willing to work on ourselves, if we're not willing to get to know ourselves and to start to move in the direction of what we truly want instead of staying where we are because it's safe and comfortable. So just know that you are on your path. Keep walking. Don't stay in one place for long. Really look at the people in your life and ask yourself, like, do they want what I want? Like, do we want the same type of friendship and relationship? And if you want more, it's not selfish. You actually deserve it. And it's actually possible, because I'm living it. I'm experiencing it every single day right now. And some days I just wake up and pinch myself because I don't feel alone. I do feel like I belong. And I know that when hard times strike, like, I've got people in my corner. And I want that for you too. So those are my 5 little things today that I've been doing over the last few years that have helped me get to this moment. But I don't know if there's one size fits all approach. The biggest thing is really learning to be honest with yourself about if you're happy, and be willing to choose a different a different life if you're not. So that's all I got for you today. I appreciate you, and I'm so grateful that you're here and that you're part of this community and that you're part of the extended soul tribe of the Coachable community. My heart is overwhelmed with joy and gratitude for every single one of you that comes and listens to this show, shares it with a friend, leaves a review, leaves a rating. Truly, it's how I get to do what I do and continue to share my journey and experiences with you. And I pray and trust that it serves you in some way if you come back every single week. So thank you for being part of my soul fam. I love you. Till next week, go be coachable.